This conference will now be recorded.
There we go. So welcome to our July virtual luncheon. We are hoping that our August luncheon will be in person with limited group, but we will also be offering, just so you know, we're working on the setup so that we can also offer the content virtually for those of you that cannot participate in person due to travel restrictions and corporate policies, or if we exceed our maximum number of participants that are able to join us in person, that we have the option for people to participate virtually. So we are scheduled to be joined by Congressman Bill Posey in August. And right now that is scheduled to be in person, provided that the restrictions and rules and regulations don't change. So welcome to what we hope might be our last fully virtual luncheon. And today's luncheon is sponsored by AT&T, so I want to give them a shout out and thank them, and I'll ask Dan to say a few words in just a minute. So just housekeeping real fast, everybody is muted as you enter the room, so please keep yourself muted as much as possible so that the audio quality is good for everyone. We're asking if you have a question, please use the chat feature. So in GoToMeeting, there's a little chat bubble icon, and if you click that, you'll see a chat section starting. And we've already got some folks who have introduced themselves and are chatting, but if you have a question for the presenters, please use the chat feature to share your questions. And the chamber staff will be monitoring that and bringing that stuff forward and helping me keep track of that. And of course, you heard we recorded the meeting so that we can publish it on our YouTube channel, and those that may not have been able to join us today at this time will be able to join us and watch it, watch the recording. Where did there we go. So now I'd like to turn it over to Dan Pollock, our AT&T rep, our favorite AT&T guy. We are so grateful to AT&T for their continued support of the chamber and certainly all that they do in the community. And AT&T is a sponsor of our entire luncheon series. So Dan, we're talking about infrastructure today. It's a great topic for AT&T. What do you got for us?
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Marcia. It's a pleasure to be with you, albeit virtually, and see some familiar faces. And like everyone, I can't wait till we get back to the new normal and get to do this in person as I talk loudly to my computer screen. But anyway, a couple things, and I hope to be brief, but use the hook if you need to. I want to get into a little bit, real briefly, of some infrastructure and some of our capital expenditures that we do in the community. But first, I think it's incumbent upon me to still talk a little bit about the COVID response, since we're still in that, and what the company's doing and how it can affect you and people that you know in the community specifically. So less of a commercial, hopefully some useful information for you all. We continue to provide relief around the country in COVID, but one of the, and I lost where I was going to look at it, but one of the things we've been doing for a while and we're adding to it. So with our first responders, military, veterans, and families thereof qualify for 25% off of certain AT&T wireless plans, unlimited and a few different ones. So you should look into that if you qualify. What we're doing this Friday, hot off the presses, is we're adding to that a plan for teachers, nurses, and physicians. So that's 25% savings on unlimited plans and more if you are a teacher, nurse, or physician. And the details of that you can find by calling or going on the website, or just going into your local AT&T store and asking about that. So I hope that helps. We're still continuing to waive the data overages during the COVID-19 period, still helping people out who maybe lost a job or have income issues because of COVID for their bills for all AT&T products and services. And if you need help with that, you can call in. And if you don't get quick answers, you can reach out to me, and Marcia, please give anyone my number who asks for it. So hopefully those help you or people you know in the community directly. And then real briefly, I will throw out some numbers I usually do during the Congressman Posey luncheon. So maybe I'll do it again because I like him to hear it too. But just three key points of the capital expenditure that AT&T is put in the community. Now, keep in mind, we do a lot more than people think, whether it's digging in the right of way and putting fiber optic cable, or building towers for our wireless network. We're always enhancing it and always adding to it. So we always present these numbers over the last 3 fiscal years. So it's blended and it's more consistent than just saying any one given year. But over the last 3 full fiscal years of reporting, we spent approximately $6.6 million in Titusville alone. That's in Titusville. If you want to expand it to the entire county, that's approximately 70 million, or just a little shy of 70 million over the last 3 fiscal years. And statewide for Florida, over the last 3 years is 3.2 billion with a B. So that's a lot of multiplier effect. It's a lot of enhancing our network, serving our customers, but also it's a lot of paychecks and that go into the community. Every time we have people working in the community, they got to buy gas, they got to eat, and if they live in Brevard, they own a home or they pay rent. So it's just part of what the telecommunications industry contributes to the community. So anyway, that's it. As always, if anyone has any questions or any needs, please reach out to me. And thanks so much, Marcia.
Thanks, Dan. I just put your email address in the chat feature.
Yep, perfect.
So people can reach out to Dan at dp9050@att.com.
That's me. Thanks so much. I'm going back on mute.
Thank you. Thanks. All right, so I want to set the stage for the conversation today, and I'm really grateful to have the county commissioner with us today, as well as Mayor Johnson, our city manager Scott Larese, and a team from the city of Titusville to help us dive into this conversation and talk about infrastructure and growth. So I pulled a few stats, and this one actually, it's kind of hard to get really good current stats, but I pulled this one because it was about mid-range since the last census, and I was struck by the fact that, boy, were they off. So I think the population in Brevard currently in 2020 is over 601,000 or 602,000. So you can see that we're somewhere between the medium and high projections based on this survey or this work back in 2015. And you can see what their projections are for the county going forward. And so if you look at the percentage that they were off leading into 2020, you can see that we're on a faster trend than what they thought. And this was probably some of the most recent stuff that I'd seen, but medium projections indicate we could have as many as 100,000 more residents in Brevard by 2030. And so I think that's important to share as we start. And then this is a national picture, but public infrastructure spending has fallen, according to McKinsey & Company, continues to fall, and that's what that first chart looks like. But there's a backlog of more than $2 trillion in projects stacked. And so I think as far as Brevard County is concerned and the city of Titusville is concerned, there are certainly backlogs of projects that are unfunded. And this conversation today is really to talk about what steps as a community we're taking, what our governmental agencies are doing in regard to infrastructure preparation and expansion, and then open it up for questions about how we, how we're managing that growth and that expectation, recognizing that there's that many more people coming into our community. So I want to recognize that we have a great panel today. We're going to start with our very own District 1 County Commissioner, Rita Pritchett, and give her a chance to talk to us from the county perspective, looking at all of those unincorporated areas of North Brevard. And then I will turn it over from there to Mayor Walt Johnson to say a few words, and then the city team to share individually within their areas of responsibility what's been happening and what their plans are as far as anticipating and preparing for growth to make sure that our infrastructure is ready to support that. So Commissioner, I will turn everything over to you.
Am I on?
You are.
Okay, great. Hey, what a great list of people that are with us here today to join us. A lot of smart people I see on your little PowerPoint. And hi to everybody else out there. How's everyone doing? Hope you're doing good. Marsha, I wish we would have done this topic about 6 months ago. It would have been a lot nicer.
Yes, yes.
COVID. But I got to say, since we're having a virtual lunch, if you guys don't mind, I'm going to have a virtual cheeseburger, French fries, and milkshake because I can get away with it. And I don't know how you guys are doing on your COVID weight gain, but it certainly is not a very nice virus that way either. So I just thinking about French fries right now, Miss Marcia, and so virtual lunch will work for me. A couple things. I'm just going to do a data dump on you. You got one. I'm going to do a little data dump on you guys of what I know that's going on. We were moving along very aggressively. I think the COVID's given us a little bit of a hitch. We haven't stopped and we're not going backwards. It's just not as fast as it was as far as new retail businesses or housing, but it is still happening. We're having a lot of people requesting zoning and business licenses. So we're doing good. Infrastructure, it's always a challenge. Like you just said, Ms. Marcia, we have a backlog of items that don't have funding for it. And what's happened too with the COVID, we're going to have over an $8 million hit as far as sales tax revenues. And so we're going to have to get creative and figure out what to do with that. That's going to affect the Indian River Lagoon. Hotels have been hit very hard. And so these are the things we're looking at right now. I don't know what recovery is going to look like at the end of the year. The president's very hopeful, but looking at the numbers of where people are going to be, I think we're going to have a little bit of things to get through economically as well of trying to get people out of their house and people working and doing those things. So it's a tough day, and I'm sure you're going to hear from Mayor Johnson and the city leaders too. They're starting to do some strategic work right now of how to make this impact as easy on us as possible. We've kind of got a little bit more of an advantage here because we do have a heavy space industry and they haven't had pullback of funding, and the military presence as well, which helps keeps the money flowing into our economy. And that's good. Ms. Marshall was with us at a meeting last night, and we discussed how to distribute $39 million to small businesses. We went and approved $10 million to get it out into the economy. And so our goal is before November's up that we have the whole $109 million out into the Brevard County families and households and businesses. I think the COVID, I don't know how to get around not talking about it. I would love to not talk about, but it's the only thing we're talking about. We're going through all these, peaks and valleys of infections and them going away. And the medical experts I've been talking to, Parish Hospital, Dr. McAterian said that he thinks within a year and a half, 80% of the population will be exposed, and that's really going to take care of most of it. His main goal is not to let that upper level get above what they can take care of for critical masses of people getting sick. Some good news on this front, though, that might help us get through a little faster is the plasma treatments they're using are working on the critically ill people. When they use the plasma, 75% of those people recovered. So I think that's some real good news as far as being able to grow soon, because if you can't get the people out of their houses, we're not going to get them building. So that's kind of the goal, to get everybody healthy and everybody out of their homes. An interesting infrastructure project we're working on with the city of Titusville. We have capacity issues, and I think they'll tell you that in a few minutes here. So we're working with the North Brevard Economic Development Zone, because we have funds there still, of trying to work on a capacity situation on the south part of the city. And if we can get that taken care of, hooked up to sewer and water, we have a wonderful area down there that will be able to hold a lot of new businesses and housing projects. And I think that'll be really, really good to our community. And Miss Marsha, that's all I've got right now, but I'm here to answer any questions you have, ma'am.
I want to roll back a little bit and just talk about, I actually don't know the date. I didn't look it up, but the county put together a blue ribbon panel on transportation. And I know that the chambers all had representation there because Bart Getchins was our representative, and he called me every time they had a long meeting and chastised me for making him the rep. But it was looking at how do we keep up with the decline in I guess the degrading of our road infrastructure, the maintenance that needs to happen, the replacement that needs to happen, because a lot of that is still falling behind in the budget. But as of yet, the county hasn't taken up those suggestions that I know of that panel presented. Do you have any comments on how you feel or what you see as far as us? Are we falling behind in being able to keep up with the demands of maintenance of our infrastructure, not to even touch on the expansion part? And are you seeing that we might have to go back and take a look at that blue ribbon panel recommendations and add some funding sources from a county perspective?
Good question, Marsha, and you're going to make me put my smart hat on here. We have a inventory of roads that need resurfaced, and that's not very expensive. And if you don't resurface them in time, they go into reconstruction. This is really expensive. What we did was we added more funds to it to make sure all the resurfacing is done so we don't build up any more reconstruction inventory. So we did kind of create a flat base here, so we're not increasing the bad inventory. But we still got to address the bad inventory. Ms. Marsha, I threw out to the commission the last 3 years in a row, hey guys, we need to do some of this blue ribbon recommendation and maybe implement either a gas tax or another type of tax to get these roads built up. I have not had the support yet, but it's something I bring up every year. So I'm still in for it. I didn't miss the extra money they put on us for the lagoon. And so, we're getting some results out of that. If we did that on the roads for just 2 years, all of that backup inventory on the roads would be taken care of. So I'll keep trying, but maybe if you guys want to reach out to your commissioners, let them know if you support or don't support it, then maybe we can get enough votes. 4 of us, we would just do it. 3 of us would get it on a ballot. So I'm with it, Ms. Gecki. If we can get that done, I would love to see our roads all done in a couple years.
Okay. Any, besides the one that you mentioned, is there any big improvements in the North Brevard area that you see coming from an infrastructure perspective that folks need to be aware of?
Well, I do know that before we got hit with this, I've got an extra increase of funds and we were going to start producing some more road improvements. Highway 46, we're getting ready to turn that into 4-lane between 95 and US 1. I'm gonna get this road right, 405, right now it's a 2-lane, heavy traffic on it. That's on the top priority list now to be 4 lanes. Something really fun, we got all the funding for the new NASA bridge. And that's a lot of money, and that's gonna pour into the economy too, as well as having the bridge here. That's gonna start next year. Those are the big projects I know we've been trying to get done. So that's really good for our community.
Okay, awesome. That's great. I know that it doesn't affect us, but I know that you guys have been working on that Sykes Creek area because of the damages to the water lines serving the beach side. Have you seen any forward motion in that at all that you know of?
Yeah, Commissioner Lober used part of his Merritt Island funds, and I think we have the funding there to go ahead and fix that. As far as capacity, I don't think we've really addressed that as much, but we probably are going to have to look at that pretty soon.
Yeah, I just know that was a problem in the hurricanes a couple of years ago because it damaged the bridge, damaged the water line, and that they're still trying to source that. So, okay, great. Well, thank you.
Thursday, we have a TPO meeting. I believe there's the funding to do the 528 bridge. So if they all approve that, that should be starting soon.
Okay.
Starting soon. Yeah.
All right. I don't know that you can answer this. It is a COVID-related question, Commissioner, but it says, what is the hospitalization rate in our county? Do you know that about available ICU bed capacity?
Yeah, they said they're well under capacity. When we first started the discussions of mask, and please wear a mask if you're in public and in areas, it's greatly decreased the risk of the COVID if you wear them. The hospital beds, though, they said they're nowhere near capacity, and they said they're running along smooth. As you know, the death rate on this has gone way down. I think part of that is we started testing the 18 to 45-year-olds, and we them testing positive. And I got to tell you, I think they might have been having this the whole time and we haven't been testing them. So I think it's been in the community, and the fact that we don't have a lot of the high risk population getting it, we're doing the right things, hand washing and the mask and the things we've been doing. So I'm really proud of our community. The high risk population is not contracting the virus. And so good job, guys. And hopefully we'll be through this in another 9 to 10 months.
Thank you. Thanks, Commish. All right, now I'm gonna switch gears and I would like to turn it over to our very own Mayor Johnson. I am moving along here and trying to get myself set up to see if I can. Scott, do you have the ability to unmute yourself? I'm looking for you in the list. One second. Colin Scott, 1 second. All right, Scott, can you hear me?
Yep, we got you.
Okay, perfect. Mayor, the floor is yours.
Hi, Marcia. How are you? And everybody, good afternoon to you. I was asked to do a little history of economic development in Titusville. First, I'd like to give you a little bit of my background. In 1977, I started a business with a partner. Had 3 businesses in over 20 years and about 350 employees. They were successfully sold in about 1996, 97. Anyway, that being said, where I really got involved in economic development is in 1997, I was a volunteer and I was chairman of the Space Coast Economic Development Commission here in Titusville. At that time, the executive director left abruptly, and I was retired, so they asked me to take it over temporarily. The board of directors did, and 8 years later, I was still there, which I guess I couldn't find anybody. I'm not sure. It was a city position and a private side board, typical public-private organization. The history of Titusville, of course, is an economic roller coaster. We did very well, certainly when the Space Center came down for several years. We went from 6,500 people in Titusville to about 30,000. But then we had issues like the Apollo, the Challenger disaster, and that sort of thing was why I call it a roller coaster, because we were doing real well, and then all of a sudden we'd have one of these happen, and we'd go through a real downturn. Where I got into it was part of what my tenure consisted of was the Columbia disaster in February of 2003. Things just shut down after that for a number of years, but we worked through it. I had an advantage in that I was a business owner and I could speak to people interested in coming in from a position of success and experience. So that was my big advantage on it. The disadvantage of the post was that we only had, the only incentive we had was a tax abatement program and no funding available as an incentive. We did have some successes during that period with small companies and some are bigger companies. One in particular was PAA, Professional Aircraft Association, and they had 20 people. Well, today they have 250 people. So that came out of that period of time. Police Hall of Fame, a group from our SEDC group went down to Miami. We heard they were interested in coming up here, and indeed they did, and they've been here for since that period, and very successful and very well known in really nationally. Another one was Knight Enterprises. I made the initial contact on that, and then I brought the EDC into it because they did have access to state funding, and that, of course, has been very successful for our community. The big advantage we have right now is we're no longer part of DOD, Department of Defense, where it's private industry now, and we have billionaires and almost trillionaires, I guess, running these things. The private businesses that will absolutely keep going no matter what, because they're not shutting down. They're year-round. It's not DOD where everything turns off on an act of Congress or whatever happens. We also have the NBEDZ, the North Brevard Economic Development Zone. That's a source of funding that we're very fortunate. We had Robin Fisher took on this challenge, and he managed to work it through, and we now have funding of the type that has been, we've been successful in bringing other businesses in. As far as preparing for the future, the staff has been working very diligently to change the city's image from negative to a very positive one, and it's been done successfully. We now have a reputation for welcoming new businesses and development while we still maintain our core values and ordinances. In short, it's smart growth, and it works, and it has been working. You've been seeing the results for the past few years. We have all kinds of development happening, hotels being built, homes being built. And unfortunately, of course, as with everybody else, we got hit with the COVID-19 virus and everything slowed down to almost a stop. But I'm very confident that we're going to get through this, and sooner or later we'll be over it, and the future should be one of constant economic improvement. So I think we will be successful. All we have to do is get through this present situation. Are there any questions?
Thanks, Walt. I saw a comment, somebody commented about your businesses and said best ever. We still miss it. So I think you guys are fans of that restaurant.
Yeah, well, there were two and a seafood company, and we actually employed 350 people. So I did have, for 20 years, a lot of experience in business, which again gave me a real economic development advantage. Anything else?
That's it. I think. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Enjoyed it. Bye now.
Bye.
Okay, Marcia, this is Scott, and before I get into my view, I'd like to let you know who is here. We have Peggy Busacca, who's our Community Development Director, Mr. Tim Ford, who's our Community Redevelopment Agency Director, Kevin Cook, who is our Public Works Director, and Sean Stauffer, who's our Water Resources Director. Just the city itself, we run a $48 million general fund budget, and half of that budget goes to public safety. When you add in our enterprise fund, which is a pay for services, you pay for your garbage to be picked up and pay for your water, Our budget is approximately $118 million. The city has annually, we run an unfunded requirements list that's about $14 million right now. So that's things that we would like to do, some things that we have to do that we can't fund. 3 hurricanes over 4 years. The city took a hit of about $6.7 million, and FEMA has reimbursed to date $1.4 million, and we are expecting another 300,000 or so, and that'll be about it. So out of 6.7, FEMA will come up with about $2 million reimbursement for that. Our property values continue to rise moderately. This year on the budget that we're building, property values are up 8%, which is very good. Our housing inventory is very low. So if you price your house right, it's going to sell. We have approximately 1,400 new units that are either permitted or under construction, and we have the potential for about 5,000 new units in future development in different phases that could happen. This year, our state revenues, the budget we're building for that will begin in October of 2020, it's FY21. We're down approximately 20%. As Commissioner Pritchett said, the county is also down. What that equates to in our general fund budget will be a decrease of about $1.3 million. So that is the overarching picture that we have, and I'd really like to turn it over to each one of our directors to talk about their specific areas to address infrastructure. And I'd like to start with Peggy Busacca, our Community Development Director. Peggy? And Marcia, I guess you probably need to unmute her too.
Let me see, and that's what I'm doing right now, is looking to see if I can do that. I thought I gave them control, but maybe not. Okay, how's that? Okay. We got some serious feedback going on. Hang on one second. Let's try it this way. Tim and Peggy, for whatever reason, we were getting feedback through the call-in line. Let's try it one more time. How's that? I'm still getting feedback over there. I'm going to let you guys control it because you should have the access to control it, Tim and Peggy, or maybe turn down I know that you're on here twice, so why don't you try turning down the volume on the computer that's connected completely and only using the call-in one. See how that works. Are you there?
Yes, can you, is that better?
That's perfect.
All right, great. It's taken 2 of us because both of us are over the age of 45. If I'd gotten my 25-year-old planner in here, they'd been able to figure it out. The Neighborhood Services, Community Development Department is made up of Neighborhood Services, Planning and Zoning, Site Review, Building, Natural Resources, and Economic Development. And most of what we try to do here as it relates to infrastructure is to see if we can utilize the current infrastructure to encourage the growth in the community. Because we know that the current infrastructure, and we're fortunate in North Brevard because when you think about roads, we've generally got a lot of capacity. We have some other infrastructure that Sean and Kevin will talk about a little more detail, but for many of our roads, especially the larger ones, the state roads, we have some capacity. So what we're trying to do as a department is to prepare the city for growth using encouraging redevelopment and infill. We don't see the city having a large potential for annexation in the future. And so we are actively trying to create a comprehensive plan and land development regulation policies which will encourage redevelopment. Right now, redevelopment is difficult and can be more expensive than new development, which is why occasionally you see entire facilities being destroyed rather than reused. In addition to that, our neighborhood revitalization study area would allow, once adopted by HUD, would allow a focus of CDBG dollars to revitalize the target area. And so we're moving forward. We hope that HUD will approve that within the next year, and we can start to increase housing and approve appearances for areas that have existing infrastructure. We have developed we are in the midst of developing a sustainability plan, which will allow us to even consider further how to utilize the current infrastructure that we have in the future. And as part of a state requirement, the city recently adopted a peril of flood and a sea level rise plan, which will help us direct development into areas that we don't anticipate as high an impact from either sea level rise or flooding, which should help reduce infrastructure costs in the future. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So speaking about housing a little bit, Peggy, what is the discussion, or what is the process, or is there any, I guess, related to workforce housing and the idea that, you know, as housing prices increase and we do have high demand here, is the market outpricing the wage, average wage here? And are we having discussions as a community, or as a city, about how we encourage workforce housing and that affordable housing, market?
Marcia, that's a big issue for us. We have spent over a year and a half meeting with the community and staff to try and put together this neighborhood revitalization plan, which will actually allow us to use more CDBG money, which is federal, in a way that we can focus what we need in our community. Right now, housing dollars come from the state and the federal government. This year, the governor, in his recent adoption of the budget, cut all of the state SHIP monies to direct it toward COVID. Understandable, but there will be less money in the next several years to actually look at that. So one of the other issues that the council has been very supportive of is to consider how we can amend land development regulations to allow people to utilize their property in more creative ways to reduce the cost of development. And that, of course, in turn, reduces the cost of the housing. So the people who are coming here continue to keep affordable housing. And one of the ways that we've done that is with our planned development, which allows people to cluster their homes, stay away from the wetlands and the other environmentally sensitive areas, and actually spend about 25 to 30% less on infrastructure. So we think that that's going to continue to help us keep values low for people who want to come in for workforce housing.
Great, thank you. I don't see any other questions at this point. So thank you, Peggy. Appreciate that. Appreciate the presentation and answering the question. Scott, do you want to, who are you queuing up next? Or do you want me to just randomly pick?
I believe that would be me, Tim Ford.
Go for it, Tim.
Hi, I'm Tim Ford. I'm the CRA, or Community Redevelopment Agency Planner. And the Community Redevelopment Agency District involves the area of Titusville downtown. If you think of the US 1 one-way pairs, that's the location. The south end is at Gray Street. The west boundary is along the railroad tracks. Marina Park to the north, and the Indian River Lagoon to the east. It's about a half square mile of area. Now, this area is underutilized. So as Peggy stated, we're trying to attract growth to this area. And one of the ways we're trying to do that is over the past 2 years is we've increased the density for dwelling units per acre up to 30 dwelling units per acre in the area north of South Street to encourage growth in an area with existing infrastructure, utilities and roads, and also to support business growth in the downtown. Now, one of the issues is that it has existing infrastructure, but some of that is the oldest infrastructure in the city. So in the FY21 budget, CRA is proposing to provide some funds to assist our water management utilities department in repair and replacement of old sewer and water lines, as well as lift stations that are particularly near the Indian River Lagoon, for one, to help new development, and two, to protect the lagoon from any spills or failures because of these old lines. We've been repaving streets, such as last year, Palm Avenue, a parallel road to the US 1 was paved, and this year we're looking to pave some of the side streets, such as Lemon Avenue, Orange Street, and Pine Street west of Hopkins, to make the area more appealing to development in the west side of the CRA. We've been continuing to do sidewalk infill and repair to increase connectivity and walkability in the downtown and make it more attractive to people. With the COVID out, you see everybody out walking and riding bikes. So it's more important than ever to build on our trails and our sidewalks. And another thing that we've done to try to entice growth, and as Peggy mentioned about redevelopment of older buildings, is we've expanded a grant program to encourage growth in the downtown. It's a reimbursable matching one-to-one grant, but it's only for in the CRA area. One of the grants is a commercial mixed-use interior renovation grant that helps assist in the cost of bringing plumbing, air conditioning and heating, fire suppression, and ADA code requirements up to today's standards, which can be a deterrent to renovating some of our older buildings. That's a $50,000 grant, and you can get an additional $50,000 if you include residential and have a mixed-use project. You can get up to $100,000. The second grant is the commercial facade beautification grant, which provides for exterior improvements, not just for the building itself, but also for drainage, parking, signage, and landscaping. And then the last is for new construction, our permit and impact fee grant that is to attract new multifamily and commercial development and help to offset some of the traffic and utility impact fees, which can be very big numbers to a developer wanting to develop in the county and in the city. And then lastly, we've done some aesthetic and amenity improvements and continue to maintain them to make the area more attractive to growth and increase vibrancy in the downtown. We have the trail that cuts through the city that is, Titusville's become a trail town with 3 major trails, intersecting in the city with the coast to coast, which gets you all the way to St. Petersburg, the St. Johns River to Sea Loop Trail, which, circles all the way up to St. Augustine and down through the center of the state. And the East Coast Greenway is a national eventual trail that will connect Maine down to Key West. So we are an important hub in East Central Florida. We're also looking to, we're doing a study on an observation pier that would connect Spaceview Park, where it's separated by water. And we're continuing looking at providing, other amenities such as benches, trash cans, lighting for safety, direction signs, and business directory signs. So that's some of the things we've been working on in the downtown area.
Cool, thanks, Tim. So you just had a building go down the other day in downtown on the corner there, a long time structure that was there. What's happening with that?
That is, we just bought the beginning of this year. The gentleman was looking to possibly rehabilitate it or renovate it, but when they start peeling back the layers of the building on the inside, they found that it was structurally unsound. So they tore it down on Monday, and they are getting ready to submit plans for a 2-story office building to replace the two-story building that was there, pretty much in the same footprint.
Okay, cool. Cool. Excellent. And do you have any update on Launch Now and that project at all?
Launch Now, from what I've heard is, and what I've seen is they're doing basically had to gut the building. They're now putting in the plumbing and the mechanical stuff. They've been doing the framing, and they're moving along. They're hoping that the bank building may be completed by the end of the year, first of the year, and that the commercial and apartment portion could be completed mid-year 2021.
All right, awesome. Thank you. Thanks for that update. All right, Scott, who's next?
Yep, next up will be Mr. Kevin Cook, who is our Public Works Director. Kevin?
Let me...
Okay, can you hear me, Marsha?
I can.
Okay, all right. As the city manager said, Kevin Cook, I'm the Public Works Director for the city. We cover a number of areas within the city, including the city buildings, traffic signals, street lights, take care of the city's fleet. We do all the street maintenance work, handle the solid waste collection for garbage recycling, and we handle the stormwater system. So we have a couple of different fronts as far as the current discussion. We have about half of the current unfunded is within our department, around a little over 7 million currently. That ranges to everything from city building replacements to additional road resurfacing to employee salaries and things of that nature. Just a lot of our backlog and infrastructure. Just kind of give you an idea of what we do on the upkeep side. Currently, we're doing a lot of investing in water quality projects for any river lagoon. We get a number of grants both from the state and from the Save Our Lagoon Foundation, sales tax money. We've done a number of baffle boxes, pond improvements that are yielding good dividends for improving water quality of the existing infrastructure. That's not really related to growth, since growth takes care of itself, but it is something we're investing in. We also are heavily invested currently in upkeeping our current road networks. We just invested at the last council meeting in a new machine to help improve our patching ability with our in-house crews to bring that level of service up a little higher. We are constantly slip lining our stormwater pipes, which are helping not have to dig up roadways and yards to replace the pipe. We're able to put a liner in them and extend their life. And just to kind of give you an idea of what's going on in our area for expansion with the city continuing to grow. While we don't have capacity issues on city streets, we do have State Road 405, which Ms. Pritchett touched on briefly. That is a state road that we're looking to entice the state to advance the improvement. We're applying through the Space Coast TPO to help steer the state funds to bring that project forward quicker. Currently timed around 2031. We're hoping that will move sooner, being that's a very long-term project, widening a road from 2 to 4 lanes by right-of-way, pond areas, and things of that nature. A very long project to develop, but we're hoping they'll advance that to a closer term. We're also applying through the TPO. It's currently on the project priority list for a US 1 trail. The city did a preliminary study on it about 5 years ago, and we've been applying for Sun Trail funding and others, which would add another trail to the city, which would bring part of the East Coast Greenway connected downtown all the way to State Road 50 is what our plan was. And that would end up being a DOT project, but we're hoping that by generating more talk about it and requesting it through grants, we'll get to advance that as well. From a local funding standpoint, we are currently looking to invest in expansion of our sidewalk networks and our bike lane networks. In the last year, the planning department finished up a mobility plan, which laid out some areas that have sidewalk gaps and bike lane needs. So we have currently looking to move some of our impact fees over to help fill in some of those gaps on our collectors and potentially add some bike lanes. We're gonna do some studies to see where the true dedicated bike lanes best used and where just some share the roadway efforts can undertake. We're also involved in a number of signal timing improvements. You're gonna see the state replacing a lot of traffic signals. They're going to a new technology for timing with GPS. They used it during the most recent launch events, and they're trying to better move traffic through town. So they're gonna help hopefully generate a little less traffic log on State Road 50 and US 1, particularly in heavy need times. And we participate with them as we're their maintenance rep for the state when it comes to traffic signals. And for the most part, the rest of it, we're constantly monitoring staffing from both the solid waste service levels to make sure we have the appropriate number of people and trucks available to keep the level of standard up to manage the waste as it's brought out in the recycling, to our street maintenance staff just having enough people available on call and able to get out to respond to the public's needs in a timely fashion. And be happy to answer any questions.
I know this isn't in the city, but you may know the answer to this. Do you know the time frame for the State Road 46 expansion, Kevin?
I do not.
Okay. All right, we'll see if, I know the commissioner is still on, but she's muted, so maybe we can see if she can get that for us. Rita, there you go. Do you know
I talked to George Angelette with that. I think next year, I think they're working on the, I'm gonna mess this word up. I know it's not feasibility study, but some study for funding, but it is on the priority list. So I will get you that data after tomorrow's meeting and give you better information.
Okay, thanks, Rita. Awesome. Okay. Sorry, I got to switch back to my control panel here. Okay, Scott.
Yep, thanks. And Kevin briefly talked about the streets, but City Council, one of the initiatives that they do every budget year is we have a 30-year resurfacing plan that requires us to do 6 miles of road repaving every year, and they've been steadfast to that. So we are on schedule and on plan with our resurfacing, and depending on asphalt prices, sometimes we get a little bit more in, and so that we're keeping up with that. Next is our great Water Resources Director, Mr. Sean Stauffer, who's got some infrastructure stuff to talk about.
All right. Sean, you there?
I am here. Thank you very much for that introduction, Scott. I appreciate that. My name is Sean Stauffer, and I'm the City of Titusville Water Resources Director. The City of Titusville runs a full-service water and sewer utility. We have, of course, water and sewer. We also produce reclaimed water. We have an engineering department. We have also have a NELAC certified laboratory, as well as a communication network that we operate that monitors our wells and lift stations and water and wastewater plants. We serve a population of around 53,000. That's because we have a number of customers that are outside of the city limits, areas north of town and areas south of town, to include Windover, certain other places where we serve customers outside of the city limits. We are a self-funded utility. 100% of our costs, capital, operating, all those are funded through our rates. And so that means that the rates that we determine, the rates that we set each year, are set in a fashion so that we can afford current year costs, as well as projecting out over the next 5 years our capital expansions that do include infrastructure improvements for new development. Wanted to take a little time just to let you know where we stand for how much capacity we have in the water and sewer system. Today, we have permitted capacity in the water system of around 1 million gallons per day. And so to give you some scope and scale about what that means, I took a look at some recent usages, and one of the new hotels down by 50 and I-95, they use about 7,000 gallons a day. The Cracker Barrel uses about 7,000. So you can see that we have currently a very good supply of water available for new development. And we'll also be looking at redoing our consumptive use permit. We'll be putting a report together in 2021, and so we'll be projecting out. Currently, from our projections and at the growth rates that we've seen, we should have sufficient water capacity out past 2031. But with that, there are a number of projects that we're all working on. I'm sure most of you are aware of Area 4. That was finished construction a number of years ago, and so we have been operating that well field successfully. We get approximately 2.75 million gallons a day from that well field. That constitutes about 2/3 of our raw water needs. The ability to shift that demand north to the new well field has let us rest the city's 2 existing well fields, number 2 and number 3. And so at this point, we are withdrawing very limited water from those. And the idea is to rest them and to allow the groundwater levels to come back up so that we can tap back into those sources in the future. We're also replacing a few wells in the Area 3 well field, and we're expecting that to increase our capacity, as well as doing some rehab work to the collection system for the Area 2 well field. Well, I know one of the questions probably is, how do you know if you are saving this water or if the well fields themselves are recharging? And so we can see that through our monitoring. We monitor a handful of groundwater wells across the city. And over the last 3 to 4 years, since we have been using Area 4, we are seeing groundwater levels increase. So we know that it is there for us and will be there in the future. We also have a connection with the city of Cocoa. So always as a last resort, if we need additional water supplies, we can lean more heavily on Cocoa to get us over any sort of issues that we may have. Previously, the daily average consumption or purchase from Cocoa was around 500,000 gallons a day, and today we're only purchasing approximately 100,000 gallons a day. Some of the other things that we've seen with new construction is it is very water conscious, and so we have noticed over the last 4 to 5 years, as developments come through, they predict a certain level of water usage, but when they actually come online with our system, it's much lower than what they are predicting. And so that's a good sign moving forward that as we may have new construction, I think the impact to our waters and sewer systems will be less than what was projected in the past. Some other projects that we're working on the water side, we're doing a number of water line replacements across the city, as well as we're doing improving some of our operations and maintenance of the distribution system. And by doing that, we become more efficient and we can increase the water quality without having to flush as much. Because certainly if you're putting a lot of water on the ground, you're not serving it to your customers. And so that's another thing that we've been focusing on to increase capacity, is to operate the system better and smarter so that less water is, more water can be used. From a sewer perspective, we currently have approximately 2 million gallons per day of treatment capacity available. We recently went through a re-permitting with both of our wastewater plants earlier this year, and we, from the calculations, were able to meet growth out past 2030. Some of the other things that we're working on from a sewer perspective, I think Tim mentioned we're going to be doing some sewer lining down on the CRA. That came as part of an inflow and infiltration study that we did over the last 2 years, and that's where we measure how much groundwater gets into our sewer system. And of course, if groundwater is in your sewer system, that's taking up some of that capacity. That study that we did, we measured groundwater flows, we connected it with rain events. And so we've come back with a prioritized list of repairs and rehabs that we're going to be doing to the sewer system. A lot of it is concentrated in the older areas, those along US 1, probably from Narvez north, down there by the Arby's, headed north up to the Osprey plant along Buffalo Road. We did have, the recommendations are about $12 million worth of improvements. And so we'll be scheduling that over the next 5 to 7 years. We're also replacing a number of our lift stations that are either in the CRA or down along the river. These are older stations that also have inflow and infiltration issues. And we'll be actually building a new lift station. Construction should start within the next month or two at the marina. And then also our Causeway lift station, which is located at the intersection of Max Brewer and US 1. You probably haven't noticed it. It's kind of back off the road, but that's another larger lift station that we'll be repairing. And when we do that, that helps to eliminate the inflow and infiltration and ultimately increases the capacity. Some of the other things that we're looking at, we're also working on some plant upgrades. We were lucky enough to get some Save Our Lagoon funds, and so we're doing a major plant restructuring or nutrient upgrade project at the Osprey plant. And let's see, we're also looking at some master planning projects for our sewer system, and one of our goals is to try to move as much of the sewage that flows along the lagoon away from the lagoon. And so we're going to look at redistributing the sewage. Currently, we have 2 plants. We have one down on 50, one up by the hospital on Buffalo Road. And so the goal is going to be to try to move the sewage away from the lagoon and more towards the plant down on I-95. One of the things that I kind of wanted to wrap up with is just a little discussion about our revenues and projections. As I said, we are self-funded, and so there have been a lot of challenges with COVID. We've been analyzing our revenues closely to see where we stand and what we can afford over the next 5 years as far as our capital improvements. What we've seen is that we are down in our revenues. We did have in November our largest user, UniFirst, down on Buffalo Road, shut down operations. That had nothing to do with COVID. It was a business decision on their part, but they were a significant customer. They were our largest. But as far as consumption goes, we have seen a reduction in water consumption with COVID, but it hasn't been significant. What we have seen, though, is we've seen a change in revenues away from commercial accounts, and we've seen some slight increases in the residential. And so that sort of matches the pattern that you would think, where people are eating in restaurants less and eating at home more. So we're going through a rate study at this time. We hope to get the results back next week to see where we stand. But we are down, but I don't think it's a crisis for the utility. And so with that, I'll take any questions that the group might have.
You're doing some, I know as part of the Save Our Lagoon project, there's also septic to sewer conversion. Is there a significant amount of that happening within the city, or is that a pretty low number within the city limits? Is it, bigger elsewhere?
So we've been looking at septic tanks across the city for a number of years now. And I think the last rough count that we had is that within the entire city boundaries, we have 500 septic tanks. And then we looked to see what septic tanks might be impacting the lagoon. And so part of the Save Our Lagoon project plan, they did some analysis about how groundwater that the septic tank discharges, how it can get to the lagoon and how it could affect it. And from the information that they found, the septic tanks that affect the lagoon are either located very close to the lagoon, within 50 meters, or are within 50 meters of a tributary to the lagoon. So that could be a ditch, or it could be houses right along the lagoon. So after their analysis, the Brevard County got back with us and said, okay, in these 2 areas, it is likely that some improvements would help the lagoon. And so we went out and we have been awarded a grant. We have found the initial population was about 30 septic tanks that were feasible to connect to sewer. And with further study, we found that we've cut that down now to about 18, which actually exist and which we are actively pursuing a plan to get connected to sewer. That there are some areas along the lagoon south of town, and there is absolutely no infrastructure in the area, and so it would be extremely cost prohibitive to get them connected. But we do have, like I said, I think there are currently 18 on the list. Hopefully we can find more in these 2 areas to convert from septic to sewer.
Awesome, thank you, thanks. I've had a couple of comments, and I'll throw this out there for the city team and for the commissioner, that you guys have provided a lot of great info, and I don't know if there is some of that exists in reports or lists or charts or what have you that we might be able to link folks to that have participated today as a follow-up. So I've just had a couple of folks say, we're visual learners. It would be great if we had if we could see it. So I throw that challenge out there to you guys to think about, not to overload you or ask you to do a ton more work, but if there are things out there within your scope that are printed things that we could share, links to those for people's consumption, that would be a great follow-up. I will address this. I don't necessarily think that it's a question for maybe this group alone. Maybe this is a conversation with a different panel, but we do have somebody asking about labor. What's being done to bring more bodies to Titusville, because they're finding harder and harder to find labor, particularly in the minimum wage area. And I think some of the housing conversation, affordability of housing and providing a place where they can afford to live is part of that conversation. But I would just open it up. Maybe I will, give me a second. And see if, Scott, if you wanted to comment on that at all, or Rita.
Sure. Before COVID, the city's unemployment rate was low 3%, which is basically full employment. And we do have a labor shortage. We have to compete within the city of Titusville with Davis-Bacon labor rates across the lagoon, which makes it very challenging. As you heard Mr. Cook talk about trying to keep the solid waste and streets folks employed, those are laborers, if you will. It's very challenging to keep when you're competing against Davis-Bacon labor rates. Like you talked about with affordable housing, we think that there'll be a lot of redevelopment of older houses. We're starting to see that as a trend, which should help people to afford a home, where most of the new houses that we're seeing going up are in the $200,000 range, where some of the older homes that were built in the 60s that are being redeveloped are much more affordable for a young family that is making minimum wage rates. So hopefully that answered your questions. I don't know if the mayor or our Commissioner Pritchett would like to comment on that at all.
Commissioner?
Yeah, our unemployment rates, I think in Brevard County now are hovering around 12%. Nationwide, they're a lot higher. So I think, I know what you're saying, because you have to have qualified skilled workers come in also, but I think we're about to have a lot of people looking for jobs, because we've lost a lot of the businesses right now that were employing them. So again, I think we're going to have 2 or 3 months seeing where things kind of settle down some. But as far as the county government right now, we've put a freeze on any kind of wage increases, just to try to keep people employed, because we are going to get hit with a budget that's not going to be anywhere near what it has been in the past. So I think we're going to have a few more people looking for jobs than we're expecting. So hopefully that'll start filling up some of these positions. So.
Well, I know that certainly the idea that they could make more on unemployment than going back to their jobs was a challenge. I believe that from a federal level, there's been some modifications of all of that so that it doesn't encourage them to stay on unemployment. And certainly those COVID funds are going to run out at some point. They're going to call a halt to that. But I do think that it's a great question. And what I would like to do is promise you that we will do a follow-on and bring in Career Source Brevard and ask Marcy Murphy and her team to join us at a future event to talk about what Career Source is doing, because I know the County Commission just awarded Career Source some dollars out of the CARES Act for reemployment purposes. But that is our workforce body here in Brevard County. And so we will follow up on that topic and ask Marcy to join us. So moving quickly, I don't see any other questions. I have a few announcements. We are going to do an in-person power hour at Fox Lake Park this Friday. So I am copying and pasting links. 1 second, as fast as I can move. Power hour is this Friday, and if you want to participate, hopefully that post goes to everybody. There's the link. If you would like to participate, we are asking for reservations. We're going to do it at the park because outside spaces, gathering in outside spaces is much better than gathering in inside spaces. And we can allow social distancing and fresh air and all those kinds of things. And the meal will be prepackaged. So we don't normally ask you for reservations for Power Hour, but if you want to join us, we ask you to register by this afternoon. So that's why I put the link in there. And you can click on that link and it'll take you right to registration. And we would love to have you join us in at Power Hour this Friday at Fox Lake Park. And that is being sponsored by Mo Muscle Tree Service. And then hopefully, there we go. Another reminder, we have reboottitusville.com and that's going very well. We've been giving out free face masks. So there are dropping another link in the chat. So if you need face masks, if you've not already registered and received 100 free cloth face masks, please feel free to use that link and register. You can pick them up here at the chamber. I also want to encourage you to take a look at our Pledge Your Safety initiative as we look to try to restore consumer confidence and get people moving out and about, and reinforcing that businesses are doing a lot to make sure that their environment is secure and safe, not only for their employees, but for their customers. So if you've not taken the pledge, go to reboottitusville.com. You'll see that there. There's some other resources within it on reopening, and so take a look at those. We also have a Visit Safely page there talking about encouraging visitors to join us and certainly respect and learn to love our community as much as we do. But I just want to throw that out there and encourage everybody to take the pledge. We do have an icon that appears on our directory. So if you take the pledge, we put a little icon on your directory listing and you can automatically search in the opening of our directory page. You can click one button and search and find all the companies that have taken the pledge just through that as a sort category. And then they're also all listed on the reboottitusville.com page. So I wanted to mention that. And then I had a request from Patty from Devereaux. So we participated in Atlas training, which Atlas is our database management software, last week or 2 weeks ago now, maybe, and it was a lot of fun and we learned a lot of great things. So there'll be additional enhancements coming to how we operate and what we do and what we're able to provide through our directory. But as part of that, we had the opportunity to, there's a little contest for participation, and guess what? We do not step down from a challenge, and Titusville Chamber team won the challenge. So out of the 300 chambers that were participating in training over those 2 days, we won for our comments, our engagement, our posts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so as such, we were awarded a opportunity to donate $250 to a local nonprofit in our name of the organization, and Devereaux was selected. So I want to give Patty just an opportunity to say a few words. Are you there, Patty?
Can you hear me, Marcia?
I can.
Oh, great. I'm using a very fancy microphone. Anyway, not surprising that you all won. You're an amazing group of individuals. I think Eric is on this call as well. And the money, of course, is going to our Titusville program. And Eric was just delighted to hear about this donation. It is a yeoman's job to keep children busy when there is no school in a residential program. It's just an incredible task. God bless the staff and the children. Everyone is doing very well physically and so forth. But these are kids that have behavioral issues. So we've got to, like all children, keep them busy every minute of every day, or they'll find their own activities. So this money is really going to go far and wide to help with the treatment of these children at our Titusville program. So I know if Eric can jump in, he would like to say thank you. I'm not sure. He's on the web.
I see him there, and he's not muted on my end, but he would have to unmute himself.
Okay. Well, anyway, just know that we are so grateful for your support. Thank you so much, and for doing such a wonderful job in getting the money. That's incredible.
Thanks. I just sent you an unmute request, Eric. Let's see. Oh, doesn't look like it's working. So anyway, so we were super excited and took the challenge literally. And so we were happy to be able to gift to one of our local nonprofits, and glad to see that it will go to the Titusville campus of Devereaux and help out in their initiatives. And that's all I have for today. I will follow up with information if we receive information from the various entities, any kind of follow-up info that I can share, we'll come back out to you. But I hope everyone has a really great day. If you can, join us Friday at Power Hour, and if not, we hope that we will see you again very soon at another meeting. So take care of yourself, be safe, and let us know how we can help. And we're all waving. We'll see you guys soon. Take care.